Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is going to be my wrap up for the month of March. And more than half of these books are books that I read during the trans rights readathon and have trans asterisk rep of some kind or were written by a trans author. My favorite book of the month was A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. And this author is non-binary, and there's quite a bit of non-binary representation in the books, though not the main characters. This is a society in which queerness is normalized, and so are neopronouns. So a lot of the non-binary characters use neopronouns. So the story is a romance between a prince and his bodyguard, and I really enjoyed it. I love that trope, but specifically how this was done was like my favorite way for it to be done. That is where there's a big focus on the expertise and loyalty of the bodyguard, but also of how loyal the royal is to their bodyguard and how much they owe them in a reciprocal relationship. And also lots of yearning with both of them being like, oh, we couldn't be together because of our positions and blah, blah, blah. And also being very careful to not pressure each other, and it was so sweet. It's an 18-hour audiobook, so it's fairly long, and they go from the bodyguard disliking the prince as a person to them falling in love, and it's pretty slow. So I really like that. There are also some really wonderful side characters. I really enjoyed the prince's sister, who is, I believe, called the Sultana. She's the sovereign of the nation, and she has a baby. And the side plot that provides a lot of the sort of structure for the romance and that kind of influences the romance is that the prince is investigating a case where someone has been making fake coins in his nation's currency. And so that's very bad for not only local society and having money that is not the correct amount of gold in it, but also their reputation with other nations because they find that this fake money is being shipped overseas. Another side character that I really enjoy is the sort of captain of the guard for the palace, and she is also sort of the head of the bodyguards, and so she is very important in that way, and she's an expert at what she does, but she's also kind of like the prince and Sultana's auntie because she has basically been around since they were little children. And I really love that, and their relationship is so precious. Oh, and our prince character has what I would call an anxiety disorder, as someone who has one myself. He has panic attacks fairly frequently and generally is just a big ball of anxiety most of the time. A lot influenced by how he was raised, and I really liked how that was handled. So I gave that one 5 stars. At the same time, I was reading an ebook called How to Bite Your Neighbor and Win a Wager, and this one is by D.N. Bryn. The author is trans. The story is another Achillean relationship between a bi man and a gay man, and in this case, one of them is a vampire, and in this world, it is pretty much urban fantasy, so it's set mostly in our world, but in this case, everybody knows about vampires, and they are an oppressed group because of the way that society and the government have chosen to treat them. So it is very difficult to get employed as a vampire, and it's very difficult to get blood to eat. You basically have to go through black market routes, which our vampire character is much too awkward and not socially savvy to be able to do, which I totally relate. If I, for some reason, needed black market goods to live, I would not be able to find them without, like, stumbling upon cops pretending to sell those things first and getting arrested right away. So I found that aspect of the story totally believable. Our other character is someone who lives in the neighborhood that our vampire lives in, and our vampire, when breaking into his house to drink from him, which is the only way he can find to safely get blood, the neighbor man realizes what is happening and wakes up while it's happening and convinces the vampire to stay because he wants the vampire to help him get into the evil pharmaceutical company he believes killed his mother. He does not tell the vampire this because he knows that they are probably murdering the vampires at this pharmaceutical company, and that the vampire probably won't be up for that, and so basically tries to keep him around and trick him so that he can get this done and expose the pharmaceutical company, which is obviously a very stressful way to start off the story, and yet I really, really loved it. It was actually really, really sweet, and I just really, really enjoyed my time. And I look forward to the next couple of books, which will follow the same sort of storyline as far as the pharmaceutical company is going to be the villain. And I believe at the end of the trilogy, we will get to see the demise of the company. I'm not sure if all the books are out yet, but I know at least the second book is. And I gave this one 5 stars as well. Also, check out this cover. It's so cute, and it is from a moment that's actually in the book. Another really cute one, Butch Boot Camp by Fern V. Bedek. This one is only about 90 pages, so very short, and it has a very silly concept of a trans character's parents trying to send her to a conversion camp light type situation and accidentally sending her to a camp that teaches lesbians how to be more butch. And it requires quite a lot of finagling with the plot and unbelievable amounts of the main character not paying attention to maintain the tension of the main character thinking she's at a conversion camp, because it's very obviously not what's happening. But the facade only has to last for about 60-70 pages, so the level of ridiculousness didn't get too high. And it was overall a very sweet story, and it is all about lesbians and bi girls sticking together. Yeah, a very sweet and silly little story. I think I give it 4 stars. Then we have a couple of non-fictions. Redefining Realness by Janet Mock. This is from a mixed-race trans woman author who was raised in Hawaii, and I believe is a mix of Hawaiian and Black. There's a lot of talk about Hawaiian culture and how there were understood to be multiple genders, and transness was understood as a thing pre-colonization, and how some Hawaiian people, especially Hawaiian queer people, are reclaiming that history, and some words that they use, and how it was to grow up in Hawaii as someone who was mixed race, her understanding of queerness as it grew over the years, and her transness. And she talks about a phenomenon relating to the title where I'm not sure what decade it was either the 80s or the 90s, I think, realness when talking about being trans was a way to mean passing. And so she talks about how that shouldn't be what being real means, and how passing is not a necessary part of transness. And yeah, this is another memoir that I would not say was enjoyable because there's a lot of dark stuff in it. Child essay for one, but I think it's a really well done memoir, and so I gave it 5 stars. The last one for the Trans Rights Readathon is Beyond the Gender Binary of the Pocket Change Collective by, I think, Penguin. Yes. By Alec Vade Menon, who is gender non-conforming and uses they, them pronouns. So, first of all, I love the cover and also the illustrations that there are a few of throughout the book. This is, I would call it an essay, probably, essay length, nonfiction. And it is basically the author explaining very basic stuff about beyond the gender binary, how the gender binary is very much only from a couple of cultures, and actually a lot of cultures around the world have genders that are not binary and might understand gender as a spectrum or as something that at least there are like lots of different categories that you could fit into. And the book talks a lot about how the reason that people try so hard to enforce the gender binary is because they want control. And when you enforce one thing like this, it helps you maintain control of an entire population. And they address a lot of things in the main body of the book, and then they go into 4 different arguments that people use against there being anything other than a binary. And they break down why all those arguments are wrong. And I think that's really helpful for especially people who are new to the discussion to find possibly what arguments have fooled them before or what ones they don't know how to answer when people bring it up. And so I thought that was really well done. The first part also is a lot of exploring of the author's own experience. And I want to read to you a little section that is a subsection of the slippery slope fallacy. And the argument against trans and gender expansive people is that if we provide protections and accommodations on the basis of gender identity, then women will be harmed, end quote. And the beginning of the author's response to that is, quote, the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey found that about 1 in 10 trans and gender nonconforming people were physically attacked in the past year, and nearly half are survivors of sexual violence. The numbers are likely higher because of underreporting. Trans and gender nonconforming people are actually more likely to be assaulted while using public accommodations, not the other way around. This is a deliberate strategy of using feminist rhetoric as a smokescreen to cover up anti-trans bigotry. Trans and gender nonconforming rights are women's rights, because many trans and gender nonconforming people are also women. The irony is then that people are misusing the language of women's rights specifically to harm women. I just really loved how succinct and excellently worded that was. This whole thing is succinct and excellently worded, and so I'm really glad that I got it. I'm pretty sure I got it from Thrift Books a while ago as I was scanning through all the books available and was like, ooh, I want that one. Immediately drawn in by the cover. The other physical book that I have here is House of Frank by Kay Sinclair. This is a bindery book. So Bindery Books is a small publisher who specifically recruits influencers to create imprints, and then the influencers and some other people will pick from manuscripts that are submitted to them and publish them through their imprint of this press. This one was published by Easy Cat Press, which is run by Jason Headley, who is one of the biggest book talk creators in existence. So this one got quite a big lot of promotion, but it is still from a small press, so I wanted to support it, and also it just sounded really good, and I really liked the cover. I really liked the first 60% of it, then it kind of got slow and a bit repetitive for me, and I didn't really understand what it was trying to say for a little section there of about 100 pages. Then it kind of pulled it back and did better, but I would say I did not enjoy the second half nearly as much as the first half. I guess I was hoping it was going to go in a different direction than it did. It is a lot about grief, and it's a lot about how we hurt other people when we're grieving and refuse to like address our grief and handle it in a healthy way. Most of the people who are in the house, which is kind of a little collection of found family that has gathered at this sort of, what are they called? The places that are next to cemeteries where they kind of host the memorials and stuff. It's one of those. And basically everyone who now lives there is from various different backgrounds, but they've all suffered grief. Sometimes really, really bad grief. It was very interesting to get to know the different characters and see all the different expressions of how they handled their grief. It also got a little plot holey near the end. I believe it is this author's debut. I really liked how there were sort of physical manifestations of grief in various different ways. That was really interesting to me. There's also some connections to disability and chronic health issues where our main character has been affected by things she has done in the past that basically has led her to be chronically ill and lose some of her abilities. Overall, I would give it 3.75 stars. Then we have 3 more audiobooks. I was gaming a lot at the beginning of the month, and I listened to these while I did that. So, Libertad by Bessie Flores Zaldivar. This is set in Honduras during the 2010s. And our main character, Libertad, is 18, I think. Maybe 17. She's in her last year of high school, and it is right around the time that a president who is not supposed to run for re-election because of the constitution of the country is running for re-election. And the populace does not appreciate that and starts protesting. And also there's some issues with people protesting on campus and cops being sent in when cops, or possibly the military, from outside the university are not allowed to violate the university's grounds. And so there's a few issues going on at once that are causing people to need to protest, and our main character's brother gets involved in that. So that is a big part of it. And we also see how politics have affected our main character's family, and there are intergenerational issues of political disagreements. And in the middle of all this, our main character is figuring out that she might like girls and having difficulties with her best friend because she might be in love with her best friend, and her best friend might be too deep in the closet to be okay with that. I was actually painting my new bookshelves while I listened to half of this, and there's a really sad part, and I was just painting there feeling really sad, and I was like, why do I feel so sad? It's because the book is sad. So yeah, it really affected me, and I think it was really well done. It made me look up more information about Honduras, and it was also really interesting to listen to the author's note, because things are so different from when she started writing it as far as the state of Honduras, and she's quite happy with how things have turned out very recently, because they recently elected their first woman president, who I believe is from the more left sort of party. Very interesting. 4 stars. Then The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Jelly Clark. This is a fairly short one, and it was quite enjoyable. It is about some assassins who are undead. They kind of come back from the dead and make a deal with a goddess to be assassins for her, and they lose all memory of who they were before so that they don't have any attachments or anything like that. And they basically get to have a second life, but they have to be assassins while they do it. So what could someone do to get revenge on an undead assassin? Very interesting, very fun. 4 stars. Then one I really enjoyed, I would say it was only slightly less relaxing and uplifting than the most recent other book I read by this author, Robin Wall Kimmerer, which was something about berries, service berries. And this is Gathering Moss, which is all about moss, which apparently is the author's specialty as a botanist. Something like that. Anyway, she did a lot of studies on moss, and while a lot of this is technical stuff about moss, it's also about society and the things we can learn that apply to society and humanity from plants, specifically moss. And also just a lot of stories about her doing her studies, which the field studies were particularly interesting, but also studies that she had to create in labs, like where she went out looking for the perfect carpet to simulate moss that wasn't living, so she could see whether it was just the texture that helped other things live on the same rock as the moss, or if it was like the living moss that did it. That was fascinating. So I really enjoyed it. 5 stars. So overall, I read 9 books, 5 books for the Trans Rights Readathon, 3 indie books. Let me know if you participated in the Trans Rights Readathon or if you're planning on participating in any readathons for April. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books if you read them or are interested. And if you'd like to leave an emoji, how about something purple? And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!